Welcome back to Square Off. Our state lawmakers have just one job: passing a state budget. And by all accounts, they can't get it done. The Republican-controlled legislature is gridlocked over how to spend a record surplus on the pressing issues affecting our state. So why is it happening, and how does the budget standoff end? And a reminder, folks, it's your money. Joining us are the reporting team that makes us smarter every morning with their Arizona Agenda newsletter, straight to your email box. Rachel Leingang and Hank Stephenson. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having us.
Rachel, I'll start with you. What are the stakes here? Why does this all matter?
Well, we have a ton of money right now, and the way we spend it or not spend it will directly affect everyone's lives. There could be more spending for education, generational investments in water, all sorts of different programs that on a daily basis you as a citizen are using. And there are people who don't want you to have any more of that, and there are people who would like some more investments. So a big amount of money that directly affects all of us.
And if the longer this goes on, Hank, what's at stake?
I think the longer this goes on, the problem is we've got until June 30, 6 weeks, to get this thing done. If we go beyond that, then the government starts shutting down. Which nobody really wants to see. That is not good policy in any way, but it is the future if they can't get their stuff together.
And we've seen a lot of these standoffs, this kind of gridlock over the budget over the past several years. I wonder if the court decision last year ending the budget stuffing that went on to win votes is somehow getting in the way of cutting deals here. Do you think that's having a big impact?
Yeah, last year we only had 31 Republicans in the House, 16 in the Senate, the bare minimum to pass legislation. And they went in there and basically bribed all these lawmakers to vote for a budget they didn't like by throwing...
Legally bribed.
Kind of.
I mean,
it was struck down. So
yeah.
Put a bunch of policies in there like, bans on school mask bans or school mask mandates to get Republicans who didn't want to vote for the actual fiscal policy in the budget to vote for it. They can't do that this year. They've still got those very slim margins of Republican majorities, and without that kind of budget stuffing, it's going to be really hard for them to put together something that especially the real conservative fiscal hawks are going to vote for. That we've got a bunch of money, and they don't want to spend it.
A lot of issues here in play, a lot of personalities in play. Talk about that, Rachel. People like Governor Doug Ducey. He's a lame duck. Does he just not have the power he had a year ago?
He doesn't have to go home, right? So he can wait it out. We have Senator Paul Boyer, who's also not running for re-election. The House Speaker and the Senate President will not be in those positions next year. We have a lot of people who are at the end of what they're doing. So, who has the leverage here? There's not really a strong leader trying to broker this deal at this point because everybody's really sectioned off, and they're not getting along even as people. So it's beyond just their political differences at this point. It's getting petty.
It's getting petty, which may be a sign they're close to getting things done. Maybe, I don't know. Let's look at the big ticket items. Water. The state's water shortage will likely dominate the life of the next governor. Governor Ducey had a big project he wanted to take on. Where does that stand?
Nobody really knows. Right now, I think that there is an appetite from a lot of Republicans, at least Republican leadership, to spend big money on water infrastructure. Now, spending the money is not the only policy that Ducey wants to impose this year. He wants to create a water authority, and that is causing a lot of consternation at the Capitol, even among Republicans who see this as, one, an unnecessary new piece of government, and two, possibly a way for Ducey to just stack this board with his friends and basically give away the water to all the power brokers in the state for the next generation. And I think that really scares a lot of people.
Education. Rachel, there was talk of a grand bargain involving Paul Boyer, a very key swing vote, as you pointed out, that would restore some of the hundreds of millions of dollars lost now that Prop 208 has been struck down. Where does that grand bargain stand?
Well, there are people who will not vote for more money for education. It's as simple as that. They're really, at this point, one of the key paths forward would be actually working with and negotiating with Democrats, and the Republicans haven't had to do that. But if you don't have the votes, if education spending is part of a key priority for not only Boyer but some other Republicans, you're going to need to work with the other party if we're not going to shut down the government.
So what about that, Hank? Because I hear from Democrats there are a lot of kind of head fakes about working with Democrats, but no real serious efforts. What is your reporting today?
I haven't heard any real serious efforts to sit down with Democrats. The budget leaders in the House and Senate will say, we always listen to the Democrats. Our door is open, but it's not like they're getting pulled into small group meetings, given the lay of the land of what Republicans are working on budget-wise. They're completely kept in the dark until, Republicans realize that maybe they do need them and start approaching them, but that hasn't happened yet.
And it's never happened.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
So
this would be a first.
This would be a first.
But it may be a necessary at this
I
point.
do want to get to two wild cards in this. Jake Hoffman and Jacqueline Parker, two Republican state reps who have become a team now known as Jakelin. Can we call them that?
Yeah, that's
Brangelina. What's their gig? What do they want?
They're in that group that we were referring to as sort of fiscal hawks. They're kind of no votes on a lot of different things that would be spending. And it seems right now they're really at odds with House Speaker Rusty Bowers, and they're all kind of calling each other liars on the radio or on Twitter.
Yes.
And I mean, if you're trying to negotiate a budget, very serious business, but you're publicly calling each other liars, I can only assume that happening behind closed doors is even worse.
Well, I'm going to end with you, Hank. What are the potential paths forward so that we avoid a June 30th fiscal cliff, or, well, who knows what happens?
I see like three possible scenarios here. One, people start folding on June 30. They put a budget up on the board for a vote, and people don't want to shut down the government and start voting for it, Republicans. Two, they don't get that far. People don't start folding, and June 30 comes and goes, and we have a serious problem on our hands. Or three, at this point, it looks like there's not going to be a budget that is only Republicans. That could change, but the real answer here is to get a bipartisan budget through the legislature. It could get 2/3 of the Republican caucus, 2/3 of the Democratic caucus, but that's just not the way they've operated before, so it's very hard to start doing that for leaders at the Capitol.
Certainly not in the Ducey era. Hank Stephenson and Rachel Leingang of the Arizona Agenda, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.